Ethan, Cole, and Mia Bennett were classmates living in the sun-soaked paradise of Palm Isle, but one reckless night of partying turned their seemingly perfect lives into a nightmare that would shake their Ritzy Island community forever. The sun glimmered off the water surrounding Palm Isle, a ritzy island where wealth seemed to flow as freely as the ocean breeze. Mansions with marble steps and palm-lined driveways lined the streets, and yachts bobbed gently in private marinas. On the surface, life was perfect. Every family prided itself on appearances, every teenager on the island seemed untouchable, and every weekend brought another glamorous gathering. Among the teens who thrived in this environment was Ethan Cole. At 17, he carried himself with an effortless charm, drawing attention wherever he went. He had the money, the style, and the social connections to match. But behind the confident grin, there was a restless, unpredictable streak that few understood. Mia Bennett, by contrast, lived just a short drive away in another luxurious home, but she seemed a world apart. She was quiet, thoughtful, and observant, always careful not to stand out too much. Teachers admired her diligence, parents praised her manners, and classmates occasionally respected her, but she was rarely the center of attention. Still, Mia noticed things others didn't: the tension in a friend's voice, the weight of unspoken rivalries, and the cracks in the island's glossy image. She had watched Ethan from a distance for months, intrigued by his daring confidence, but wary of the chaos it could bring. Their worlds collided at every school function, from poolside fundraisers to weekend parties on yachts that glittered under the moonlight. There were moments when Ethan's reckless energy drew Mia in, moments when curiosity outweighed caution. But the unspoken tension between them remained invisible to most, hidden behind the island's veneer of perfection. One summer night changed everything. The biggest party of the season was scheduled on the largest yacht in the marina. Teens arrived in designer clothes, carrying bottles that glinted under the lights. Music pounded through the night, and the air was thick with the scent of sunscreen, alcohol, and excitement. Cameras flashed incessantly as laughter and gossip mingled with the ocean breeze. Ethan, as expected, was at the center of the action, commanding attention and bending rules with a reckless charm. Mia, cautious but curious, moved through the crowd, trying to remain invisible while observing the energy around her. No one knew that this night would not just be another party. Beneath the sparkling surface of the celebration, tension was building, a storm that only needed a single spark. In a community obsessed with image, the perfect illusion was about to shatter, and the consequences would ripple far beyond the island's sun-soaked streets. The yacht rocked gently against the dock as the party reached its peak, lights reflecting off the water like scattered jewels. Ethan moved through the crowd with effortless confidence, drink in hand, daring anyone to challenge him. The alcohol flowed freely, laughter grew louder, and the music thumped so hard it seemed to pulse through the deck. The sense of invincibility among the teens was palpable, a dangerous mixture of privilege and recklessness that no one questioned until that night. Mia had stayed on the edges, careful to keep herself separate from the chaos. She had seen enough parties to know how quickly a small conflict could spiral out of control, but the energy on the yacht was mesmerizing. Groups of teens danced wildly, some clinging to the railing, others spilling drinks on polished wooden floors. Cameras flashed constantly, capturing moments meant to look glamorous, unaware that they might one day serve as evidence. It started with something almost trivial: a spilled drink, a careless shove, a glance that felt like a challenge. No one noticed it at first, masked by laughter and loud music. But Ethan's temper, fueled by alcohol and a deep-seated need for control, began to rise. His movements grew sharper, more unpredictable. He nudged, he pushed, he laughed in a way that hid tension behind bravado. Mia, trying to avoid the chaos, inadvertently got caught in the escalating friction. She stumbled near the edge of the deck, her balance compromised by the slick surface and the swell of the waves beneath the boat. What could have been a minor accident transformed into something far more dangerous. Ethan's hands, meant only to steady himself, found their way into the moment in a way no one expected. The combination of pride, alcohol, and recklessness created a flash of chaos: a misstep, a sudden movement, a struggle that lasted only seconds but changed everything. Onlookers, too intoxicated or distracted to intervene, laughed nervously at first, assuming it was part of the party's theatrics. The night continued, the music booming, as the subtle panic began to rise in whispers behind the flash of cameras. By the time the yacht returned to the dock, a shadow had fallen over the celebration. Mia's absence was noticed, first with confusion, then with alarm. Panic spread quickly among parents and partygoers, shattering the carefree facade that had dominated the evening. The golden veneer of Palm Isle was cracking, revealing a glimpse of the darkness that lay beneath its polished surface. A single night of recklessness had crossed a dangerous line, setting in motion events that would grip the community in fear and disbelief. The news spread through Palm Isle like wildfire. Mia Bennett was missing, and panic gripped the Ritzy community that had always prided itself on safety and control. Parents rushed to the docks, their luxury cars lined up along the streets, engines idling as they searched for answers. Friends whispered, phones buzzed constantly, and social media exploded with speculation. The golden image of the island's teenagers, carefree, untouchable, and perfectly groomed, was suddenly shattered. Authorities arrived quickly, their presence stark against the backdrop of pristine yachts and sunlit waves. Investigators combed the marina, flashlights cutting through shadows, taking careful note of footprints, discarded cups, and scattered party remnants. Witnesses were interviewed, their recollections fragmented and often contradictory. Some had seen Mia near the edge of the deck, others remembered Ethan laughing nearby. The chaotic blur of alcohol, music, and crowded spaces made piecing together the night a complex puzzle. Then, Mia was found near the dock, unresponsive. Panic surged as medics worked frantically, but the truth was already impossible to ignore. Toxicology reports later revealed that both teens had consumed significant amounts of alcohol, but it wasn't the drinking alone that led to disaster. Evidence suggested a moment of recklessness, a miscalculated step, and a struggle that ended in tragedy. The luxurious surroundings that had always seemed untouchable suddenly became haunting, reminders that wealth could not shield anyone from danger. As the investigation continued, cameras and social media posts became central to understanding what had happened. Videos captured fleeting glimpses of tension, small confrontations, whispered arguments, gestures that seemed insignificant in the chaos but now held heavy meaning. Rumors swirled, growing more intense with each retelling. Some spoke of jealousy, others of hidden grudges, and a few even suggested premeditation. The community, once united by privilege and shared status, began to fracture under the weight of suspicion and fear. Ethan's behavior drew particular attention. He appeared calm in public, almost too calm, his charm now tinged with unease. Parents and teachers who had once admired his confidence now questioned it, wondering what darkness had been hidden behind that easy smile. Mia's family, meanwhile, faced grief compounded by disbelief. The young girl who had always been careful, who had followed rules and stayed out of trouble, was now the center of a tragedy that no one could have imagined. Palm Isle, for the first time, felt unsafe. Its carefully constructed image of perfection was eroding, replaced by fear, suspicion, and questions that had no easy answers. The investigation was only beginning, and each new revelation promised to dig deeper into the hidden fractures of a community that had always believed itself invincible. As the investigation unfolded, shocking details about Ethan Cole's life began to surface, shattering the carefully curated image of the golden boy of Palm Isle. Teachers who had once praised his intelligence and charm described a different side, a teenager prone to outbursts, unpredictable behavior, and a desire to dominate situations at any cost. Friends admitted to fearing him, recounting moments when his charm had turned manipulative or aggressive. Privilege, it seemed, had insulated Ethan from consequences for years, giving him a sense of invulnerability that the island's other residents envied but secretly resented. Mia, on the other hand, had hidden struggles of her own. Behind her quiet demeanor and polite smiles, she carried the weight of expectation, pressure to fit in, pressure to excel, and pressure to maintain the flawless image her family demanded. She had confided in only a few friends about the anxiety and isolation she often felt, and her cautious approach to social events made her vulnerable in unexpected ways. The night of the party had been her attempt to navigate the glittering world around her, to step slightly out of her comfort zone, but she could not have anticipated how quickly circumstances would spiral out of control. Court documents and interviews revealed more surprises. Witnesses offered conflicting accounts of the moments leading up to the tragedy. Some claimed Ethan's actions had been careless but unintentional, a fleeting mistake in a night fueled by alcohol. Others suggested a darker possibility, a moment of deliberate recklessness, a choice made in the heat of frustration or envy. Security footage and photographs from the party provided small, telling details: a hand gripping a railing too tightly, a stumble that might have been preventable, expressions that hinted at anger and tension. Each piece of evidence layered complexity onto the story, making it clear that nothing was as simple as it seemed. The community watched in disbelief as the layers of truth emerged. Palm Isle's elite, accustomed to controlling appearances, now faced the reality that image could not protect their children. Parents struggled to reconcile the charming teenager they thought they knew with the reckless, unpredictable actions that had led to Mia's death. The trial loomed on the horizon, promising further revelations and courtroom drama that would expose every secret, every misjudgment, and every hidden tension. By the time the island braced for legal proceedings, it was clear that the story of that night was more than a tragic accident. It was a portrait of two young lives entangled in privilege, pressure, and poor choices, an explosive combination that had forever altered the lives of everyone on Palm Isle. The calm, polished streets would never feel safe again. The courtroom was tense as Ethan Cole faced the consequences of that fateful night. Palm Isle's elite filled the seats, some with disbelief, others with anger, and many with a silent fear that their own carefully curated lives could be shattered by a single misstep. The trial became the center of the island's attention, with every detail of the party, every drink, and every interaction under scrutiny. Witnesses described the moments leading up to Mia Bennett's fall, and videos once dismissed as party memories were now key pieces of evidence, each frame dissected for hidden meaning. Ethan's demeanor in court was calm, almost unnervingly so. His lawyers argued that the incident was a tragic accident, fueled by alcohol and youthful recklessness, while the prosecution painted a picture of a teenager who had acted with reckless disregard for another human life. Friends testified, sometimes contradicting themselves, adding complexity to a case that already seemed impossible to untangle. The community watched every session closely, hanging on to each revelation, each twist, and each new claim, desperate to understand how something so perfect could go so wrong. After weeks of testimonies, deliberations, and media scrutiny, the verdict was announced. Ethan was found guilty of involuntary manslaughter. The decision divided the island. Some families wept for Mia and praised justice, while others struggled to reconcile the image of a golden boy with the reality of his actions. The ruling sent a powerful message: privilege could not protect anyone from accountability, no matter how carefully an image was managed or how insulated a community might feel. In the aftermath, Palm Isle itself seemed different. Parents tightened supervision, schools revised rules for parties and alcohol, and teenagers became more aware of the fragile line between fun and tragedy. Luxury yachts, sparkling pools, and sunlit streets no longer carried the same carefree aura. The community that had once believed itself untouchable now lived with the knowledge that wealth and status could not prevent heartbreak, nor erase a single night of recklessness. For Ethan, the consequences were personal and lifelong. Life outside the courtroom was a constant reminder that actions have lasting impacts, and no amount of charm, money, or privilege could undo the damage caused. Mia's family mourned her deeply, their grief compounded by the knowledge that their daughter's life had been cut short by a series of reckless decisions. The story of that night became a cautionary tale, repeated in hushed conversations across Palm Isle and beyond. It was a stark reminder that appearances can be deceiving, that even paradise can harbor darkness, and that a single moment of carelessness can shatter lives forever. The island would never forget, and neither would anyone who had witnessed how quickly innocence and privilege could collide with tragedy.